The world is going crazy. The news is filled with war, political conflict, and frightening economic forecasts. Our society is like a runaway train heading deeper and deeper into moral decay and insanity. Everyone who's even partially awake has a theory of who's responsible. It's the corrupt politicians, it's the World Economic Forum, it's George Soros or Klaus Schwab. But I think there's a simpler answer to this. I think the person who's mainly responsible for our decline in this world today is low-T Christian men.
Hey, Scotty. Jesus, man.
Christian men today are, on the whole, weak, unimpressive, and generally failing as stewards of this world. And I believe it is this failure of Christian men that is causing our society to nosedive. Unless we can get Christian men gaining and wielding power in an effective way, I believe that Western civilization will be eradicated within the next few generations, if not sooner. If that sounds extreme, then either you're not paying attention or you have your head in the sand. In this video, I'm going to be breaking down what I think needs to happen if we want to get our world back on course and what you can do to be a part of it. So first, what I want to do is really define what this low-T Christian man looks like. And I have a lot of experience in this because I've been this guy and I've worked with countless numbers of the low-T Christian man who is, I think, the big problem here. So the first characteristic of this low-T Christian man is that he is totally addicted to pornography. He has been corrupted by the succubus demon of lust. He has allowed himself to become totally addicted to cheap and easy sexual pleasure through internet pornography. The reality is that a Christian man who is regularly using porn is spiritually, physically, and psychologically compromised. There is no possible way for you to perform at your best and enact God's will in your life or in the world at large while this is a major problem for you. And the vast majority of Christian men today are totally and hopelessly hooked on this garbage. Second, the low-T Christian man is totally hooked on low-value escapism. It might be video games, it might be sports, it might be social media, but basically he gives way too much energy to things that don't really impact his life or those around him. And he allows it to consume his time, consume his resources, blow his neurochemical stores so that he shows up weaker, less interested, and less motivated in the other areas of his life where he is called to make a difference. Third, he is physically unfit. All right. The reality is if you have a weak body, then your ability to show up powerfully in this world is going to be limited. Okay. If you have low energy, if you're overweight, if you have a terrible diet, well, guess what? Our world today is very toxic. There's a lot of garbage in our food. There's garbage in our water. And if you allow yourself to become physically weak, then you're just not going to be able to do as much. You're going to be lethargic. And this allows all other temptations to hit you 10 times harder. This allows that temptation to do less, to play smaller, hit you more, weigh you down. But if you're physically fit, okay, if you're strong in your body, if you have energy, if you have vitality flowing through you, well, then you're going to be able to do so much more. Additionally, the low-T Christian man has allowed feminist and leftist ideology infiltrate his mind and cause him to play small, weak, and scared. Instead of powerfully speaking and acting upon his truth, he holds back. He doesn't want to mansplain. He doesn't want to step out of line. He doesn't want to say anything that might get someone mad at him. Okay, all right. He'll wear a mask. Sure, I'll wear 3 masks. I'll get 8 vaccines that have been totally untested. Sure, whatever you say, whatever's going to keep me from getting yelled at. And because he's afraid of getting into conflict with these corrupt ideologies, he basically opens the door and allows these to run his world and the world at large. And this leads to the final defining characteristic of the low-T Christian man. He is simply a man in a house rather than the man of the house. Basically, he has outsourced authority to culture at large, and because of that, he has no sway or influence in his own life, in his family, or in his society.
Outsourcing is the answer to everything.
Because of all this, the average Christian man has no power to push back against the forces of darkness in the world today. He is simply allowing us to get steamrolled. And the Christian man, he should know what's going on, and he should be standing up for what is right, true, good, and beautiful. So what we need is Christian men to reject this path of weakness and to embrace a high T form of masculine living. As Christians, we believe that we are tapped into the highest source of power and truth in the universe, and we must learn how to wield that power effectively in our lives and in the world at large. So what does this look like? Well, basically, we can flip all of the characteristics of the low T Christian man on their head. All right. First thing is you must reject our culture of perverse sexual gratification. All right. We believe that sex is something much more beautiful and important. It's designed to bring together a man and a wife in a loving marriage so that they can create their own little unit in society, and they can fill that unit with love and produce more powerful and good people. For most Christian guys, their investment in their family is going to have the greatest positive ripple effect throughout time than anything else they do. Let's face it, most of us are not going to be world-changing, business owners, leaders, or whatever. I hope some of you are, but even in that case, right, like your ripple effect will be biggest by installing powerful family values into your family. And you will be doing that first and foremost at the foundational level in your sexual morality, in the way that you relate to women, and in particularly with your wife. So you have to quit pornography and you have to get sexual self-mastery. And if you do this, then not only will you become more powerful, your impact in the world will be directly affected and improved. Secondly, you must become competent. Instead of shooting all of your energy into bullshit escapism, you need to discipline yourself so that your motivational circuitry is plugged into your path of influence. All right. And this path of influence, it starts with you, it goes into your career, and it goes out into the world. But you're never going to be able to be your best if you're giving all of your best energy to like your fantasy football team or your video games. All right. You need to make sure that you're playing the real game of life. Imagine how dramatically different the world would be if the average guy was putting his energy into becoming useful, right? If that was his game, if it was, we had more guys becoming good politicians, good business owners, good ministry leaders. What if that was their game instead of like reaching level 99 in World of Warcraft or Call of Duty? The high T Christian man is also physically and mentally fit. All right. Your ability to generate power in your physical form has a direct carryover to your ability to generate spiritual, emotional, psychological, and social impact. Like I was saying, there's toxins everywhere, and they are in the form of mental pollution in terms of what we take in with our information diet, and it also has to do with our physical diet. All right. You need energy. You need power. You need discipline, and physical fitness has always been a part of this. The whole idea of moderation, the idea of avoiding gluttony, the idea of fasting, these kinds of things are baked right into Christianity because they work, they matter, and you need to take the physical plane seriously. And finally, if you want to live as a high T Christian man, all right, you don't need to just take a stand, you need to play offense. All right, no more passive bullshit. You need to actually go out on a warpath of your divine mission in life. And this is going to look different for every guy out there. For some guys, it might be a very public facing thing. For other guys, it might be more interior. But if you are not playing offense, then you're not playing as a man. That is what we are designed for. That is what our testosterone, our hormonal system is optimized for. Right? We are basically the warriors of humanity. Okay. And in order to access that warrior energy, that high T, that drive, that grit, that ability to persevere, to make large movements in life, that comes down to your mentality. And if you're not trying to play offense in your life, then you are just passively playing defense. You're just trying not to get squashed further. And this is not going to work if you want to have a good life and you also don't want to see this world go up in flames. Now, I believe the biggest obstacle to going from a low T to a high T Christian man is actually a misunderstanding and a corruption of our faith. And what it really comes down to is a misunderstanding about love. Like, we're called to love. We're told God is love, the spirit of love. All right. That's what we're called to. And then the forces of this world have twisted our understanding of what is actually loving. And instead, what comes out is something that is incredibly far from love. So, for example, the idea of charity, of goodwill towards, everyone, all right, that gets corrupted and turned into niceness. What's niceness? Niceness is like, I don't want to make anyone mad. I don't want to get anyone mad at me. I don't want to ruffle any feathers. So I'll just say the thing that they want to hear. What that is just submission. And it's submission in many cases to something screwed up. And real love, real charity is to when someone is saying something wrong or trying to push something wrong, or you have a thought that is wrong. All right. Even in psychology, we have this idea that every thought and every feeling is something that, we have to listen to or else we're repressing. No, we have to speak truth into what we know is wrong. We have to respond. We have to actively spread what we know is true and good. And yes, sometimes this means pissing people off. That's not the goal, to piss people off. The goal is to tell the truth. And we try and do it in a tactful manner that allows people to actually hear it. We try to understand where they're coming from. But if you are too compassionate, okay, that actually leads to enablement. This is something that I think people screw up a lot, is that they try to love people that they see pushing bad things. They try and love the corrupted parts of themselves. But when they're doing that, they become soft and they become tolerant. All right. We're not called to be tolerant. We're called to actually truly love. And that's a sacrificial thing. True love is sacrificial, which means that, listen, I'll do the uncomfortable thing for what's best. All right. And this starts with ourselves. It's like, you know what? I know that part of me that's lonely or scared or, feels inadequate. That's at the root of all my poor, weak behavior. I just use porn and video games and that kind of shit to escape these negative feelings. Okay. And it's like, oh, that part hurts. I'm going to give you your little treat. I'm going to give you your drug. I'm going to allow you to escape. That's not loving. That's weakness. All right. The true act of love, the true act of charity is to look at that part and you forgive it. You forgive it for being messed up, but then you do not give it something bad. You give it what it needs. And sometimes what it needs is not going to feel good. Sometimes we need to give bitter medicine, both to ourselves and the people around us. But perhaps the most pernicious form of corruption of our faith is taking our belief that God has it all handled and allowing that to excuse basically negligence on our part. It's like, oh, well, it's in God's hands, or only God can save this now. And so we use that as an excuse to not do these uncomfortable things. It's like, oh, well, I prayed to God to quit porn and it didn't work, so it's all in his hands. And it's like, that's not the way it's supposed to be, right? We believe in grace. We believe in the power of God, but we also believe that he equipped us with responsibility and power. And we have to wield that responsibility and power to the maximum of our potential. All right. And only then can we put it in God's hands. If you're showing up and half-assing it, well, then chances are God's not just going to make it work anyway. All right. God helps those who help themselves. It's like pray like everything depends on God. Act like everything depends on you. Ultimately, the only path forward is to marry our Christian understanding with an aggressive, high testosterone form of masculinity. Because we are in a spiritual war and we need warriors, and ultimately that is the responsibility of men. This means aggressively going on the offensive, okay? We must adopt an attitude of true audacity. That's what Christianity is. Living a truly Christian life in this crazy modern world is audacious. And it demands that you become an extreme outlier, all right? You can't just sit in the middle today and really call yourself a practicing Christian. At least I don't think so. By simply following the basic tenets of your faith, All right, what would that do? Okay, well, it mean you're off porn. It mean you're not abusing escapist activities. It would mean that you're relatively fit and healthy because you're taking care of your body, okay? And it also mean that you're very competent. It means that you're earning. It means that you are doing good things in this world. That's going to put you in the top percentage of men. Really, like the idea, like Jesus tells us to become perfect, and we have to pursue that, all right? You cannot be mediocre and a Christian, not truly. Otherwise, you're just living in a lie. You're living with severe contradiction. And the reality is this will put you into conflict. And that's what you're actually built for. That's what your testosterone is for. It allows you to not only face conflict, but thrive in it and gain power from it. And to be clear, we're not aiming for conflict with our brothers and sisters out in the world, okay? Ultimately, we want to liberate, serve, and love these people. But what we're going into conflict with is the evil that exists in the world, the lies, the deceptions, the dark forces that want the demise of humanity. It's not through an effort of force and actual like bloody combat that we will win this. It is through the quality of our spirit, our understanding and wielding of truth, our submission to the will of God and his power and allowing it to flow through us. And there's an order to this. First, we must purify ourselves. We must get ourselves in order. We must get our house in order. And then it's about bringing that order that we have cultivated interiorly and in our immediate sphere of influence and expanding that influence into the world at large. And for many of you out there, that could be sizably bigger than maybe you've allowed yourself to imagine. Because guess what? God's looking for people who are willing to answer the call. And if you answer the call, the graces and the doors that he will unlock for you, you can't even imagine. This is the time of the high T Christian man. And it's either you decide to become him or you decide to just simply roll over and let the forces of darkness have their way with you and the world. Personally, I'm not okay with that. I'm not going to be doing that. And I'm looking for men to join me. All right. This is your story. This is your time. You are meant to rise. You are meant to be a shining beacon of goodness in this world. To try and help you with this, I've created a new free guide called the God Mode Operating System. In it, I teach you a framework for marrying the best elements of modern psychology, self-help, and our Christian faith. You can check it out today by clicking the link below. It's totally free. Ultimately, what I want to show you how to do is to marry your personal aspirations with the will of God. Because when you do that, guess what? You're going to be working with the power of God. You will become unstoppable. But the key is learning the mechanics of pulling this off. It's not obvious. It took me a long time, and I realized that a lot of self-help out there, a lot of strategies for trying to get ahead actually cause you to work against yourself and work against the way that God uniquely designed you, particularly as a man. And so this God Mode Operating System is designed to help you really figure this out and unlock the power and that God has in store for you so that you can become the man that he wants you to be. So click the link below and grab the free guide, and I'll see you in the next one. Ooh, yeah.